everybody. Welcome. I'm Amissa, Marketing Manager here at Upkeep, and we are so happy you made it to our webinar today. Today's webinar topic is Mastering Maintenance with Sensor Technology. Before we get started, let's go over a few ways that you guys can participate in this webinar. Mark, do you want to bring up the deck?
Absolutely.
Okay. So throughout the webinar, we are going to be asking you questions, and we'd love to have you participate and get your feedback answers in the chat feature. So you may see a chat feature that you can use to put your answers in. Also, there is a questions feature pictured right there on the slide, that if you have any important questions that you want to ask, go ahead and type them in there so we can make sure that we can address those. So let's test this out. I want to know where you are joining us from in this webinar, and so also what the weather is where you're at today. So put that in the chat. Let's test it out. And while you guys are doing that, like I said, my name is Amissa. I'm actually joining from Eugene, Oregon. And today it's going to be sunny and 85. We don't have a lot of humidity here, so it's going to be like a really nice summer day. Are there any other Oregonians here? Let's see. Okay. Lorenzo's in Arizona, and we know that it's been like record high heat there. Bruce, Pasadena, Texas, hot. New York, Georgetown, Texas, Jonathan, Virginia Beach, nice and hot. 102 and humid. Gabe in Missouri. Oh my goodness, that sounds horrible. I would not want to be in that. Casey, Brian from Tennessee, Nigeria. Okay, we got people from all over. That's awesome. Oh, Sandy, John. Okay, John's in Oregon, fellow Oregonian. Okay, well, it looks like we got the hang of this chat feature, so I'm glad you guys are providing that feedback. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So I've already said it a couple times, but I'm Amissa, Marketing Manager here at Upkeep, and today we have our very own Gary Wood and Mark McKelvey speaking. And I'll go ahead and pass it over to you, Mark, to introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Amissa. Hey, everybody. My name is Mark McKelvey, and I am a product manager here at Upkeep. And I lead our efforts around Data Hub, Edge, and our public API. So basically all of the aspects of the Upkeep platform, where we're all about connecting data sources, bringing that data together, and making sense of that data.
And Gary, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Gary Wood. I am a senior implementation manager here at Upkeep. So when you guys come on as clients, I'm the individual that takes you through your project, through your implementation project, import data, and build the system up as you need it to function for your organization. So 26 years manufacturing experience, been working in CMMS systems for probably, 34 years of those. So, but yeah, excited to be here today.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Gary. So I think we can go ahead and get started here. I'll go ahead and start by just laying out the agenda today. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about the 3 key concerns of maintenance teams and how sensors and automating a lot of the tasks around those concerns can really help you with leveling up your maintenance program. And what we're going to do is we're going to introduce these 3 key concerns, and then we're going to walk through each one of them in detail. And then we're going to talk through a few customer examples. And then finally, we are going to wrap up with some Q&A. So without further ado, let's talk about these 3 key concerns of maintenance teams. So there's really 3 concerns. And the first one is, as a maintenance manager, what you want to do is you want to monitor conditions and react to those incidents quickly. Like if something goes wrong, you're there in a hurry to make sure that you put things right. Second, if something does go wrong, you want to understand what happened, where did it happen, and why, so that you can reduce incidents like that, reduce downtime in the future. And then finally, you want to get out ahead of these issues, incidents and downtime. And to do that, you want to conduct preventive maintenance so you can avoid that downtime in the first place. So let's go ahead and dive in. Let's start with the first item, which is monitoring conditions and then reacting to those incidents quickly. So, the first question here is, what should you monitor? What is condition monitoring? What should you be monitoring in order to make sure that your program is effective? And I think it's the answer is fairly straightforward in kind of theory, but then in practice it can get a little bit more nuanced. But what you want to monitor are conditions that reflect the health of the asset, and a lot of times there are these operating metrics like temperature, pressure, power consumption, current draw, vibration, a bunch of metrics that just let you know, hey, what's going on with your machine in a given moment. And what I'm curious about is, I'd like to ask the audience, make this a little bit interactive. What types of assets are you all working with, and what kind of conditions are you monitoring for those assets? So go ahead and just drop some of your assets and what some of the conditions that you're monitoring in the chat.
Looks like they're typing. Got a few people typing some answers. Mike says broiler and steam systems, water treatment, PSI, temperatures for flue, etc. Keith says extrusion, press operations. Nick says centrifuge, vibration. Kevin says tank levels. Mike Fox says gym equipment, treadmills, bikes, etc. Vibration. Got pumps, pump flows, high pressure washing units. Yeah. Environmental conditions in a calibration lab. Induction motor generators, gas lines, meter stations, and compressor stations. It's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Humidity. John says HVAC systems, chillers, boils, hot water tanks, lighting, plumbing.
All right. Yeah. So all over the board. So everybody, we know what assets we need to monitor. We got an idea of what the properties might be. So the next question is, how do you do it? How do you monitor your conditions? How do you monitor your assets? And one option is that you can monitor your conditions manually. You can have technicians take periodic meter readings. You can wait for somebody to report an issue. You can wait till you observe an issue. Basically, just go out and put your techs to work and go ahead and inspect these machines and these assets physically. So that's one option. Now, there's issues with this. So number one, what happens if your facility is remote? What happens if you are not there? How are you going to inspect it? It's going to be a little bit more challenging, right? What happens if the issue occurs after hours? Nobody's there to take a look at it. And what happens if an issue occurs, between regular inspections? So you have inspections scheduled, or you have your maintenance techs go out and inspect the meters on your various pieces of equipment. What happens? Well, you might miss something, and some examples of that are, we've seen this with some of our customers where they have, say, for instance, a natural gas tank. It's out at a remote facility, nobody's there, pressure goes up, no one's there to report it. They don't know until something less than desirable happens. Same kind of thing. Restaurant freezer goes down after closing. Nobody's in the restaurant. All of a sudden, you're spoiling a lot of high value product. We had a customer with a kombucha manufacturing line. And it goes down, and every hour that goes down, they're losing $2,500. So, big consequences for this kind of manual downtime, manual condition monitoring. And Gary, I'm curious, since you have a lot of experience in this space, what issues have you seen with manual condition monitoring?
Yeah, good question, Mark. So manual condition monitoring, one, we know how difficult it is to fulfill our maintenance teams today. Okay, we're constantly looking to have the most of our maintenance teams, and if you're having to send someone out to take meter readings and things like that, that's manpower wasted, right? So with condition-based monitoring, you let the sensors provide the data for you. You can utilize that individual toward PM, reactive work orders, things of that nature. So, it kind of frees up your team for one. For another, and you touched on it a while ago, somebody possibly walking by and seeing it. Okay. 9 times out of 10, it's a requester out on the floor. Okay. Your techs are busy, like I said, with PMs and reactive work orders, or even projects for that matter. And you're depending on a requester to see that this machine's down, it's not functioning. You have this condition-based monitoring within your application. You know it right there. If you have your parameters and your alarm set up correctly, it's going to notify you almost immediately. Okay, so it just gives you time to get ahead of the major faults or the major damage that could be done to an asset when it's not found quickly.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary. And, you bring up a great point, and that is, what if assets could monitor themselves and tell you if something goes wrong? And, it turns out that they can. Many assets have sensors to track key operating metrics, things like temperature, pressure, flow rate, vibration. A lot of the items that you all mentioned a little bit earlier, they're baked into these particular machines. And a lot of times these sensors are often controlled by what are called PLCs, programmable logic controllers. How many people out there have heard of PLCs or are working with PLCs or have sensors attached to their assets that they're aware of?
Greg says yes. So maybe all of it. Keith says yes.
Yeah.
They know about PLCs. Okay, good. We have some folks that
Jonathan, yes. Yeah, we have a number of people saying yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's great because with Upkeep, we can actually tap into those sensors that are on your equipment that are maybe hooked up to a PLC. And what we can do is we can start automating this condition monitoring. What I've shown you here is our Edge platform. And what this is, it's effectively a solution where we hook up sensors or we hook up to your PLCs and we pull in data from your assets. In this case, we have temperature and we have, say, humidity here. And I could pop into here. And what I'm doing is I'm pulling in the data for these particular sensors at this facility in real time. I don't need to wait for anybody to go out to the facility or report back to me. I can just kind of get a bird's eye view, of what's going on straight from my office, my computer, like maybe I'm at home or something along those lines. And I can take a look at the trends, like what's going on with the humidity, the temperature, the dew point, moisture rate, like a variety of different metrics. And, if there's an issue, I can kind of like zoom in here. And I can also export, the data if I want into a CSV file, which is kind of like a spreadsheet format. So it's a way that I don't have to manually monitor all my conditions. I can let some machines do the work for me. And, the best part of this is that I can also set up alerts. And what I can do is I can configure an alert, and I can set up something to where, hey, let me know when something is above a threshold that I specify. In this case, say I'm monitoring temperature, I can say, hey, trigger something, send me an email or send me a text message when this particular sensor detects a reading greater than 60 degrees or whatever it might be. And what I can do then is I can get notified immediately if something goes wrong. We've seen that with some of our customers. I can get flagged, and then I'll get an email, and then it'll light up, right within my dashboard So I know, and we've seen a couple of our customers utilize this where they're not at the facility, they're away, and they get an alert, and they're able to dispatch somebody right away to prevent a critical failure. So again, automated condition monitoring, we have some options of that. Again, we're leveraging the sensors on your machines, or if you don't have sensors, you can install some external sensors. So I'm just going to come back here and back to our presentation and just kind of summarize like what the benefits of moving from manual condition monitoring to automated condition monitoring. Again, it allows you to monitor conditions at remote locations from anywhere, monitor conditions 24/7, and then ensure your readings are accurate. Sensors are taking the info. You don't have to worry about somebody writing it down and getting a typo. And then it allows you to get in front of incidents quickly. So again, it's condition monitoring is a great first step, but automating that can take things to the next level. But let's assume, so you've automated your condition monitoring. You're able to stay on top of things and respond to incidents quickly, but what happens after the incident? What happens after the incident? What do you need to do? After the incident, there's a few things you probably want to know. You probably want to know which asset went down, how long was it down for, and why was it down? So, these are some of the key things that you would want to track. And once you start incorporating this kind of analysis into your maintenance program, it'll give you the ability to reduce downtime, because you're going to understand which machines were going down. And once you understand which machines are going down, you can pay a little bit more attention to them. You can start to figure out why the machine went down in the first place. And that leads me, I want to ask Gary again, what are some good examples that you've seen of effective downtime tracking? We kind of talked about some high level items, but in practice, what does this look like?
Yeah. So basically, most companies, when they're tracking work orders and things within a CMMS system, they have to track or ballpark their asset downtime by the work order. How much time was actually spent within the work order. Okay. Now, once you get up into PLCs, sensors, things like this, and it gives you an exact minute that the asset went down, it's on us as the maintenance techs in reactive state to figure out exactly why the asset went down. But you have a more fine-tuned asset downtime to relate to. Okay, so that's some of the stuff I saw. But also another thing we got to touch on too. Condition monitoring absolutely gives you the parameters to adjust your preventative maintenance thresholds as well, right? I see Wade in here, Wade Caldwell, talking about a lot of his older equipment. 25% of the equipment have PLCs. Okay, everything else would need sensors, right? Well, he may need to adjust some of his preventative maintenance timelines because his equipment's older. I've had to do that before in the past. Stuff that was PM'd at a quarterly rate because the asset was much older and was not as efficient. We had to bring that back to monthly, and at that rate, we could extend the lifetime of the asset. But yeah, a lot of downtime tracking through the sensors and all that. I mean, just giving you true asset downtime with the sensors / PLCs. It's just it's amazing. It's an amazing piece of work. I mean, it really is. So
Yeah,
good stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Gary, and that's a great segue into what I want to chat on about next, which is exactly how do you track downtime, and what are some of the different approaches that you can take, and there's a number of ways you can do this. One way that I've heard quite frequently is using work orders as a proxy for downtime. How many folks out there are using Upkeep are using work orders as a proxy for downtime? Whenever a work order was created to whenever it was actually completed, that's kind of like your asset downtime.
Yeah, I'd be willing to bet that number's pretty high, unless they have the chart on the machines. We had charts on our presses that charted how long the press was down and things like that. Outside of charts and automation and all that, I imagine a lot of people are doing that.
Yeah, so Wes says we do. Wade says we are adding Groove Epics and RIOs on all of our equipment for part counts. Phase 2 will be adding sensors, motor temps. Keith said it's tracked here.
Okay. Yeah. So, a lot of people, I'm guessing, do that. And what I'd be curious about is how many people are actually using Upkeep within the assets page to track downtime, because we do have that functionality here. If you go into an asset, you can check the details page. And then we have this concept of adding downtime and viewing a downtime log. So you can either flip this status indicator from operational to non-operational, or you can come in and add downtime through the downtime log right here. So I could say, like, for this particular asset, maybe I had some downtime starting at 11 a.m. and maybe like I had 15 minutes of downtime, which is kind of a lot. Maybe I didn't have my condition-based monitoring all in ship shape yet, but I could come in here and I can add downtime, and then that's going to show up in a downtime log. So I have all of my downtime in one place, and it's a little bit more precise than just trying to use work orders as a proxy. And the good thing about this is that what I can do once I set that up is that information will show up in Upkeep Analytics. And what I can do is I can go in and find that particular asset. In this case, it's this milling machine that I have here. And I can take a look at what was my downtime for that particular asset. And it'll track like my total downtime hours, my percentage available, and then it'll also include my downtime events. So it's kind of like a end-to-end solution for capturing downtime and then making the analytics available. So how many folks are familiar with downtime tracking within Upkeep Assets page, and how many people are using it?
They're typing.
Yep, too much manual, Basil. Automated, yeah.
Yeah, Wes says theirs is not automated. It's a manual input from the supervisor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so this is another area. So we have the ability to capture asset downtime within Upkeep. But the cool thing is this is another situation where sensors can help us out. Data from those assets, they can tell us when they're down, and they can also tell us why. We can let the assets speak to us. And the way we could do that is we could use asset sensors to monitor things like when the asset was actually running or not. A lot of times you can hook into the power supply of an asset or a current draw or something along those lines, which we are making available with Data Hub, which allows you to connect to your sensors, PLCs, and then allow us to pull in data from those. And then we can use that information to update that asset page that I was just on. We can flip that switch for you automatically, and then that data will be captured within Upkeep. That is coming. We're working on it right now. It's coming at the end of Q3. So stay tuned for that. But one question I have here is, what about the why? What about the why? How do you capture the why with this? Like we can with the sensors, we can let you know when a machine was down or not. But what about the why? I think it might seem like it's a little bit challenging at first, but this is where we can go back and lean on condition monitoring. So what we can do is we can check the conditions before the downtime incident occurred. So we kind of have this holistic approach to how we're handling our condition monitoring and our asset downtime. We can say, like, hey, was there a temperature drop right before we had the downtime incident? Did vibration increase? Was there increased current draw? And so what you can do is you can start to leverage the data from your sensors that you're pulling in to give you some insight as to why some downtime is occurring and where you might need to spend some more time on maintenance. And I want to kick it back to Gary again. And Bill, how have you seen in some of your experience, sensor data used to provide some insights into downtime, where you're like, hey, something went down. Let's take a look at the data to figure out why.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question, Mark. So absolutely, you have to do, you have to analyze your data. Obviously, you see in your dashboard through the sensor that the asset's down for, like you said, a temperature drop. Okay, but you have to set parameters. Obviously, you're going to set it at the most emergent end of that parameter. But you can see the temperature drop down through that. So that tells you, yes, there's a temperature drop. You're looking at vibration analysis on gearboxes or motors, right? And you can see the vibrations picking up, prior to the gearbox going down or something of that effect. So, yeah, definitely analyzing the data, over time, it gives us leverage to adjust our PM schedules as well, okay, to meet the timelines of all the aged assets, So it just gives us a more historical view of how our assets are running, what their current conditions are, and being reactive before we totally just, the assets just damage, big time. So, but yeah, definitely data analysis across your condition monitoring will give you in a positive direction.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary. So yeah, and just to kind of wrap that up and encapsulate is, the benefits of automated downtime tracking. It's more accurate, it's more scalable. You don't have to ask a bunch of different technicians for what's going on with a particular machine. Allows you to identify assets that need more attention, gives you better insight as to why. And it gives you the insight you need to reduce downtime, which is what we're ultimately after. So we've talked about how condition monitoring helps us react to incidents quickly. We've talked about how downtime tracking helps us understand what was down and why. The next step is to prevent downtime and incidents in the first place. We do that with preventive maintenance. So, solid maintenance and preventive maintenance program keeps conditions favorable, prevents downtime, allows you to be proactive instead of reactive, and most importantly, frees up your time so you can look at the bigger picture. You can start to understand, well, how do I just look at my maintenance program more holistically and drive increased value for the company. And this is an important transition to make in kind of like your organizational maturity. And I think this is right down the fairway for Gary. What are some of the examples of organizations that you've seen that have gone from a reactive approach to a more proactive, preventive approach? And what were some of the aspects of that?
Yeah. So, you heard me mention a while ago, talking about how I had some of the older assets, in my facility, and they just were not making their preventative maintenance timelines. I was going reactive prior to getting into my preventative maintenance. Yes, I had condition-based monitoring on them, but, that condition-based monitoring, once I went back and analyzed that data, then it gave me the forefront to say, hey, look, we're not at a 3-month threshold now. We need to do this at a monthly basis. Now, once we got that to monthly, okay, and, we had that monthly PM on that asset. We got hands on, lubing, oiling, whatever the case may be, cleaning out. And then alongside the condition monitoring, it basically, our reactives disappear. I mean, they basically disappear. I'm a firm believer, if you stay 90% plus in preventative maintenance, you're world class and your reactives disappear. I've been in organizations where I've had to flip that scenario around. Trust me, it can happen. Condition-based monitoring is a large portion of that. Okay, allowing your system to tell you what's going on with your assets, notifying you exactly when they're going down, freeing up your team to take care of those PMs of machines or projects out in the workspace. So definitely big on PM and one of the best things I've done in my career, my last 2 stops, I had the best of both worlds is what I tell people. I had condition-based monitoring, or PLCs as we call them. And, I had a really good PM program. And, you stay somewhere 16 years and you have 96.6% machine efficiency. That's pretty good, gang. That's pretty good. Use those two things together. Use it to the best that you got, the most that you have, and trust me, your organization is going to be better off for it. They're going to be more efficient, and most importantly, that bottom line is going to grow, and everybody keeps their job, right? So,
awesome. Thanks, Gary. That's great insight. So I think, it's clear the benefits of setting up a structured PM program. I think that the key question is, how do you structure that program? First you have to figure out which assets to track, and you're going to start with your critical assets, the assets that drive the most value in your particular facility and particular operation. But then the big question is calendar-based or usage-based preventive schedules. So should you be maintaining things every 3 weeks, 6 months, etc., or should you be basing that on actual usage, like runtime cycles and things like that? So question for the audience: how do you schedule your preventive maintenance work? Calendar or usage?
They're typing. Wes says calendar. John uses both.
Awesome, John.
Calendar.
Mostly calendar.
Yeah, so a lot of calendars. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's compare them head to head. So you have calendar based and usage based, and the pros of the calendar based is it's easy to set up, it's easy to schedule, it kind of just works, right? But there's some cons with that. There's some drawbacks. It can be a little bit inefficient, right? That's the main drawback here. It can result in too much or too little maintenance, and it ties up resources that could be focused on higher value items, and you might miss some things which could result in some downtime. So that's where kind of usage based might come into play. The usage based maintenance is going to be more efficient. The maintenance is going to occur just at the right time. The analogy here is like when you get your car's oil change, you can either do every 3,000 miles or 6 months. And if you drive a lot, you probably need to do it more often than 6 months. If you don't drive so much, you can probably wait a little while, right? So if you're able to tie it to usage, you can make your maintenance program that much more efficient, which reduces costs and can prevent downtime. Now the con, and this is the big con here, is that it can be difficult to set up manually, right? It's difficult to schedule manually. It's hard. How do you get this information, right? And that's where sensors come into play again. They allow you to automatically track runtime cycles, production volume, and you can drive your PMs, your preventive maintenance, based on these metrics. So, within Upkeep, we can do that. We have this concept called meters within Upkeep, and meters allow you to track these metrics on a periodic basis. And you can use those meters to record the various values, the readings of your equipment. And then you can use these particular readings, to drive your maintenance program. And right now, you would typically come in and update your meter readings manually. You come into this details page and you would add a meter value. And there's some issues with that. It takes time from your techs. Again, we're back in the manual world. But it'd be really nice if you could capture the data here, because then what you can do is you can kick off work orders. You can kick off maintenance based on your meter reading value. So you can kick off something every, when a particular meter reaches every 100 hours, or reaches a certain number of cycle counts, etc. And then you can have your entire usage-based program automated and taken care of without any intervention from your techs or anything along those lines. But the big issue here, though, is again automating, like inputting those meter readings in the first place, and that's where Data Hub can come in and help out as well. So Data Hub, again, it allows us to connect to your PLCs, to your sensors. And what we can do is we can hook up to those particular PLCs, those sensors, et cetera, and then we can start tracking properties from those. In this case, I have temperature, humidity, but we can also track things like runtime and cycle counts. And we start pulling in that data automatically. And then what we do is we sync that data over to your meters, again, automatically. So data comes from the PLC, from the sensors, it goes into upkeep, and then I can sync it over to those particular meters. And that's great because then I don't have to go update those meters automatically. I can just pop in, and again, I'm going to take a look at the history here, and all of these readings are going to just show up automatically for me. I didn't have to, I'm just collecting a boatload of readings here. And I didn't have to lift a finger. All I had to do is just connect my machine to Upkeep Data Hub, and those readings would then populate automatically. And again, right here, I'm showing temperature, but this could also be runtime hours. This could also be cycle counts. And once you have that data into meters, again, you can kick off a work order trigger here. And then meters also integrate with our preventive triggers module, as well. So you can come in here and you can create a trigger. And instead of doing the time-based trigger, which you might be doing today, you can come in and you can add a usage-based trigger, and that will hook into a meter, any one of your meters that you've created in Upkeep. And then you can set up a program to where, hey, I want to kick off the work order every 1,000 hours. And then you have everything available. With that particular work order, you can set the priority, you can assign it to your particular users, you can add checklists. And again, it's a whole nother level of automation that opens up. And most importantly, what it does is it makes this problem over here difficult to set up manually, difficult to schedule. Again, I highlight the manual part is the difficult part. Once we get rid of that, all of a sudden, this usage-based program is a lot more attractive, a lot easier to maintain. So now that we've walked through our 3 main concerns, we're going to just touch on some industry examples, and I am going to kick it over to Gary.
So yeah, good stuff, Mark. Good stuff. So we had this one client, Primal Pet Foods. Okay, so they had some challenges within their organization. Okay, they had to review their reactive maintenance practices. They were very inefficient in work order management. They had, hardly any visibility of maintenance operations around the organization, right? So, they come in, they get with Upkeep for their maintenance management software, and they introduced the Edge package, for, their sensors and condition-based monitoring. So what they were able to do was achieve very much improved maintenance practices across, even parameters they didn't even know they had. Okay, so, reduce downtime for assets, increase operational efficiency, and improve maintenance practices. Okay, so they virtually increased across every parameter of their maintenance team, and that's what you want to do. When you combine several technological factors to CMMS programs into your organization. The more automation you can go, the better the more efficient you're going to be. The better your team's, the KPIs results will show across those. So with Primal Pet Foods, it seems like they hit a home run joining Upkeep and getting the Edge sensors to monitor their equipment, to give them real-time visibility on what their assets are doing that's at that time. Okay, so very good outcome for those guys.
Awesome.
So Mark, yeah. Yep. So the next slide, I believe that's Icon. Is that right?
That's right.
Yep, Icon Entertainment, guys. Here we go. So this is the big one. Okay, this is the one that shows a monetary gain on utilizing condition-based monitoring. Okay, these guys lost $8,000 because they had a walk-in freezer go down. They lost $8,000 worth of meat and stuff in store in their freezer, for spoilage. Basically. So, they were unreliable in maintaining their equipment or being able to view their equipment. The reactive maintenance practices were skewed, and lack of asset visibility. All of these things, condition-based monitoring resolves. Okay, it's automated software. Thanks to Mark and his team, they're kicking tail over there. So increased increased equipment uptime and reliability. That's one of the benefits they got. Real-time visibility and asset health and performance. That's huge. That's huge. When you want to know exactly what your asset's doing, how it's performing, if there are any parameter, they're coming close to any alerts, alarms, what have you. Go to your dashboard and look. You don't have to send somebody across campus to check it. Just go to your dashboard and look. It's right there in front of you. Okay. So everything's more automated. It's more visible. You have more communication and collaboration across your team. So, and with everything being more visible and more automated, trust me, you're going to start seeing reduced downtime and cost associated assets as well. So, Icon Entertainment, hit another home run, improved their maintenance practice, equipment reliability, and operational efficiency using Upkeep software with the sensors. It, we saw somebody in the chat while ago said they were using both preventative and condition-based monitoring. I spoke to that before Mark even asked a question. You use both of those together, man, you got the best of both worlds right there. So awesome job with these two companies here, curtailing some bad performances in the past, turning things around and being on top of their game at this time. I have full trust that they're both world-class maintenance teams at this time.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Gary. And I will turn it back over to Amissa to handle some Q&A.
Yeah, so Q&A time, everybody. I have been monitoring, and there's a decent amount of questions in there. So we do have time today. We're going to hit as many as we can. I'm going to go with Mike Fogg's question first. He said, will this system work with gym equipment?
Gym equipment. So
Gym equipment.
Yes, I mean it should work with like any kind of equipment. It kind of depends. Again, it's like you got to figure out. So what do you want to monitor? What are you trying to figure out? And if it's gym equipment, I'm gonna guess it's something like maybe treadmills or something that has power. And if that's the case, then yeah, a lot of times anything that draws power, you can measure that. And if you can connect to that, then you can start to infer, hey, when was this particular piece of equipment running? When was it not? So that you can start tracking downtime, maybe be able to start tracking like a bigger current draw or something like that. So again, it kind of depends on the piece of equipment, but theoretically, yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Mark. And then Greg Green asks, does Upkeep integrate with a preferred sensor brand? Do you sell sensor hardware that is Upkeep branded? What will integrate easiest with Upkeep?
Yeah, so I think there's a number of options on this front. We can integrate directly with PLCs, those programmable logic controllers, and some of the common brands we integrate with are, say, Allen Bradley, which is a fairly common PLC, as well as Siemens. Their S7 PLCs, like we should come across those quite a bit. And then there's certain kind of sensors that speak this particular protocol called IO-Link. Some particular brands that typically do that are like Keyence, folks like that. So if it's one of those type of sensors, then we can integrate. And then if you don't have any sensors, we do provide our own Upkeep branded sensors. Those are going to be like battery powered, so they're going to be a little bit more periodic. They're not going to be giving you readings like every millisecond or few seconds like a PLC sensor might. But it can be an option if you do not have any sensors baked into your equipment.
Cool. Let's see. George says, do you replace a SCADA function?
SCADA function.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't want to say it. I wasn't sure.
SCADA. The SCADA system.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we do not replace your SCADA system. So what we're really trying to do is we're trying to leverage data from your sensors and from your PLCs, et cetera, and use that to drive your maintenance program. SCADA system is kind of a way that you can bring all your sensors together or bring your PLCs together and give you that bird's eye view, like kind of like how your actual like operating floor would work. Some folks have those, some folks don't. For the folks that don't, that's fine. We can go ahead and connect directly to your PLCs and equipment, and then you can lean on some of our visualization tools. But if you already have a SCADA system, and maybe like one of the common ones is ignition by inductive automation. If you have one of those, then we could probably integrate that way. So then you could send data from your SCADA system to upkeep to maybe drive your PMs or drive your reactive work orders. So we want to just be able to integrate kind of wherever you're at in your data journey.
Nice. Okay. This is kind of a question, I think, or more of a concern. Maybe you have some suggestions. Wade says his biggest issue is needing an on-prem solution because their IT manager wants everything inside our firewall. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So the way that like we typically would set up our system is we respect kind of like the separation of church and state between like an operating network and like a corporate IT network. And what we could do is like we would bring a device, and that device would connect directly to your operating network. But then we would send the data back to our particular cloud over your IT network, and there would be like a physical separation between those two networks. So they can't like talk to each other except through a couple programs like on the actual machine. So what we're doing, kind of long story short, is we're respecting that need for security. So we're putting a device like behind your firewall, and it respects all the rules of your firewall. And then there's no way to get in and cause nefarious problems like with your OT network, because it's on the other side. Like the outside world is kind of like separated physically from your operating network. So long story short, there's options there is what I would say.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. I think maybe you guys can answer this question. Is this app secure from cyber attack?
We take every precaution and we make every effort to avoid that kind of stuff. So the way that we do it, anytime we're connecting to your machines, we use hardware devices, and those devices have security certificates on them, such that they can only communicate to one place, and that's our servers on AWS, Amazon. And then that communication from our device pulling data from your sensors and PLCs to our servers, that's over an encrypted connection. So nobody can listen, nobody can do anything like that. And then any communication from that device only comes from the device out to our network over that encrypted connection through that, and it can only communicate to one place. So every effort that we can make using kind of standard security best practices, we do make.
Okay, cool. I think we kind of already touched on this, but let's just answer this. John wants to know, what can you tell us about compatible monitoring devices that can feed data to upkeep?
Yeah, I think it's like if you have, so I think that, if you have PLCs, that's like a good place to start. And then, is it an Allen Bradley? Is it a Siemens PLC, something along those lines? But even like apart from that, like what we kind of want to be sensor or connection agnostic. So if you have a PLC, great. If you don't, there might be ways that we can just connect like the electrical output or something along those lines. So, I think the first step is to decide, what are you trying to get out of it? What do you want to monitor? And then we can work with you to try to come up with a solution and go from there.
Cool. I know the answer to this, but I'm just going to let you answer it. I'm going to paraphrase this. Is the application available for Android?
So the upkeep is on Android. Upkeep, the upkeep mobile app certainly is. Some of the items that I demonstrated, so for instance, that edge dashboard, that sensor dashboard, and the data hub connection, that is not on the mobile app right now. But the outputs, like the meters that it feeds and the work orders that it kicks off, those are of course available on the mobile app.
Let's see here. What else do we got? I'm trying to go through all of them here.
Yeah, Abatina's got two really good questions here.
Yeah, why don't you touch on those, Gary?
So Abatina asks, can we use these sensors and upload data to manage equipment in multiple sites? So I'm thinking they need several gateways. If they have them in several different sites, they need, especially if they're a good ways apart, they would probably need more than one gateway to pick up that data and transmit it in. Is that correct, Mark?
Yeah. So I think yes, like if you have multiple sites, that's not an issue, at all. I think it's just a matter of setting up the appropriate connectivity scenario. I mean, we can connect again to like a PLC or sensors at one side, and then we can go to another side and do the same thing. It's all going to feed to the same place. It's going to feed to your upkeep account, whether it's in Los Angeles or New York or wherever you're at. It's all going to go to the same place. We just have to install separate pieces of hardware at those different facilities. And again, that can be either we're connecting to the sensors you already have, or giving you some sensors. And as Gary mentioned, a gateway that would allow you to add external sensors if you didn't have them.
Yeah. And another part of his question, which I've been about to die to answer, Mark, I'm sorry. Do you have a cost efficiency reference on how much the assets should cost / revenue output to make sensor installation worth it? I wouldn't tie a cost to it. I'm sorry. I got a little stuttered there. I'm sorry, Bettina. But I wouldn't tie a cost to my asset. We got to think about something, guys. Our assets is how our organizations makes money. Okay. We always said back in the old days, if the machine is sitting idle, we're not making money. Okay. So I know by pricing some of the edge with sensor package out with some of my past clients, guys, it's not as outrageous in cost as you may think. I'm just telling you. It is really not. I work for a company that probably put millions and millions of dollars, PLC and data, into a CMMS system that was built probably in the 70s. Mark, you've heard me talk about the old AS400 system. But the Edgewood Sensors package, guys, I'm telling you, you're spending the money that you would on a Pinto, and you're getting a Cadillac or a Jaguar. Okay, so cost, I really wouldn't associate a cost to asset, whether it's worth it, especially when it's touching product and making production. So that's just my 2 cents worth of Bettina.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary.
What do you think, Mark? What do you think about that? Give me your input on it.
I agree. I think, take a look at that asset, and if that asset is the bread and butter of your facility, and that's generating a lot of the value, then I think there's your benchmark right there. It's like, okay, what happens if this asset goes down, or if you have a particularly costly maintenance event? What does that cost you per hour, per day, per week? And then you can kind of look at like, okay, like what am I willing to spend to avoid that, and then compare that to what the cost of your sensor package and monitoring system is, and then the ROI, I think, becomes pretty clear.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think we're gonna get to the point where we're gonna wrap up. I have one more question we're gonna read off.
Okay.
Mike again asks, are your sensors able to connect to the equipment's PCAs to collect data?
PCAs. I'm not sure what a PCA is. If you want to maybe mention, if you if you're still there and typing, if you just type in what that is, otherwise just follow up with us after this.
PCAs.
But what, we typically connect to, like I said, like a PLC, or maybe if you have a SCADA system and it has kind of like what's called API connectivity, we can do that. Not sure what the PCA is, but
Okay.
be
All
interested
right.
in learning.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we're getting close to time. We'll give you guys a few minutes back in your day. We really do appreciate you all attending this webinar. We hope it was educational, helpful in some way for you. We just want to provide value to you, whether you're a customer or not. We appreciate you taking the time to be here. So thank you, everybody, and we hope you have a great day.
Have a
Thanks,
good one,
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.